Hi, folks. I'm Chris Corbran, Program Manager with the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, and I serve as the external lead for the Laurel Highlands Conservation Landscape. And take a little bit of time to chat about the 2024 Laurel Highlands Mini Grant Program. To start, this program is supported by DCNR through the Environmental Stewardship Fund and the Bureau of Recreation and Conservation, and it is administered by the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, or PEC. In 2024, for this program, we have $70,000 total to disperse. The grant requests should fall between $1,000 at the minimum and $10,000 at the maximum per project. For each project, you must hit the minimum match ratio of 1-to-1 or 50-50, depending on how you look at it. Match can be cash. It can be in kind, or it can be a combination of cash and in kind. The biggest thing to remember is that no part of your match can originate from another DCNR grant source. So no match in DCNR funds with other DCNR funds. One more new thing for this year in 2024 is that we're trying to stay consistent with the mini part of the mini grant. And we've capped the total project cost at $50,000. So if you have a much larger project, there's probably a more appropriate funding mechanism for it besides this program. Also keep in mind that this is a reimbursement style funding program. So after you incur your costs, submit your final closeout paperwork and it's approved, we'll send you a check and settle up. Couple important dates to keep in mind. This grant opens on November 8th, 2024, and it stays open until December 30th, right before New Year's 2024. That gives you about 2 months to really put a solid projects application together and have plenty of time to reach out and ask any questions you might have. We hope to announce awards in mid-February. We're shooting for the 17th. Sometimes that's a little bit of a moving target, but it's a target nonetheless. Around that same time, we'll have a kickoff meeting for the grantees that will likely be a virtual meeting, and that's just an opportunity for us to check in with folks who have been selected for an award, chat about the contract process and the expectations of the grantees in the program, and just make sure we're addressing any other things that might come up. We feel that keep the project completion date pretty far into September. That should give folks all of spring and most of summer to complete your project. We also build a little float in there just in case anybody needs a little bit more time, but September 15th, 2025 is our completion date target for all of these projects and programs. Let's run through the eligible applicants for this program. They include municipalities, municipal agencies, educational institutions, and nonprofits incorporated as 501c3s. Whether or not you fall under the requirements of Pennsylvania's Bureau of Charitable Organizations, you must be registered anyways and have proof of your BCO status. Since the funding for this program originates through the Environmental Stewardship Fund, it is a requirement through that funding and the legislation that you're registered and you've got your BCO certificate. Sometimes we have applicants who have a BCO certificate and approval in process. That's okay for application, but if you're awarded, we will need to have it in hand by the time the contracts are signed. Eligible projects. For a project to be eligible, it must be located within Cambria, Fayette, Somerset, or Westmoreland counties. So in short, has to happen in the Laurel Highlands Conservation Landscape region. To be an eligible project, it also must address or advance one of the following priorities of the landscape: outdoor activities, conservation, tourism visitor experience, or sustainable communities climate resilience. Generally, your project will fit into one or multiple categories, and usually these are broad enough that we can find a way to fit your project into one of these uh, priority categories. In the past, this program has supported trail development and construction. It's supported things that, stream surveys, map design and printing, the installation and creation of interpretive signage, rain barrel workshops, a pretty wide suite of projects. So the chances are, if you have something in mind that addresses one of these buckets, it'll fit nicely with the intent of this program. We'll run through eligible reimbursement costs. To start, contracted professional services. And these include costs provided under contract or a professional service agreement with the grantee to perform all of or just part of the official scope activities related to the project. We also have in-house professional services, which usually mean, a grantee's paid staff is going to be completing some of the work for this project or all of it. When it comes to in-house professional, we use the billable rate, which usually includes an employee's hourly rate plus all of their fringe benefits. And this rate should be established officially by the organization well in advance of the application to this program. We also have other project cash costs, and these are like that miscellaneous category and include things like travel, room rentals, printing, and postage. The most important thing to remember about eligible reimbursement costs is that they must occur within the grant agreement period. So after that contract has been signed and you have it in hand, you can start, and anything that falls after that date and before the end is going to be an eligible reimbursement cost as long as it fits the other requirements of eligible costs. The link down here in the bottom of this slide brings you to DCNR's guidance on eligible costs that you can read in a little bit more detail. When it comes to ineligible expenditures, we have a few. If you incur expenses prior to the date of a signed agreement and a contract, it will be deemed ineligible. If activities related to your project or program happen outside of the 4-county Laurel Highlands Conservation Landscape region, will also be ineligible. Further, this program cannot fund fundraising or lobbying activities, nor can it be used to re-grant, provide scholarships or fellowships to a third party. Once again, I've kind of put a link in this slide that we will put also in the description related to this video once we post it online for more information. If you're one of those folks who loves to read all the rules before you start playing a board game, then dig right in. If not, see where it gets you, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any other more questions as soon as you get into it. Let's take a look at match. In some ways, this follows some of our eligible costs, but expanded a little bit. Contracted professional services. So match can originate from costs provided by a contract or professional service agreement to provide and perform some or all of the activities in the scope of work. Similarly, in-house professional services can count as match when a mini grant's paid staff time, support, and labor provided by the grantee are used to perform all or part of the approved activities within the scope of work. Volunteer services can also count as match, and usually this is non-skilled work, depending on how you define skilled, that uses the official value of volunteer time rate established by the independent sector. For PA, at the time this is recorded, that rate is $31.30. Donated professional services can also be counted as match, and these include services provided at no cost to the grantee by an individual possessing specialized skills or knowledge to perform all of or part of some of the official scope of work. So usually that includes something like a professional design, graphic wise, engineering work. Um, Keep in mind that just because you might have somebody out there digging post holes who has a doctorate in marine biology, if it doesn't fit the overall scope of the official work tasks, they still have to use the volunteer service rate. They can't use their doctorate rate. When it comes to professional services that are donated, we do require a form documenting the work to be done and the associated value of that work being used to execute the core services and tasks for the project or program. Equipment use also falls under this category. If project materials or equipment is donated at no cost to the grantee, that can also be used as match. Something to keep in mind when it comes to match, it's important that if any of the service, activity, material has been used in another project as match, we can't use it again for this one. So no double dipping. So this slide right here kind of identifies some of the core bits of the application. We've tweaked this a little bit from past years where we used to ask for the connection between your project and regional plans, things like that. And we've simplified it, and we're really just asking broadly how it was that your organization has identified the need for this project, or how did you determine that the project you're proposing advances an opportunity that was realized throughout someplace in the landscape? Similarly, partnerships, we've changed this a little bit in that we used to just ask for bunches of partnerships documented through letters attached at various points of the application. And we want to emphasize that we're really looking for quality over quantity when it comes to partnerships. If there's somebody or an organization who is really integral into making your project a success, that's the type of partnership we want to see documented. If the partner is going to provide cash or professional services, we definitely want to see a letter from that partner. Here's another area where we've made some tweaks. This used to be, I think, goals, outputs, or outcomes and actions. And we've kind of changed that second category to measures of success. So let's run through what we mean when we say goals, measurements of success, and actions. Ooh. Always forget about that interesting transition there. A goal is a broad statement of what you want to accomplish and the final impact that you want to achieve. So really, what is the condition that you wish to change? A measurement of success is a deliverable. This should be something succinct and quantifiable. Actions are the work and tasks that you'll be doing to actually achieve your outcome and ultimately, satisfy one of your goals. So let's look at a couple examples under each of these categories. So a good goal is something like residents understand the importance of water conservation, right? Pretty broad. That's a nice change that we would like to see happen throughout the landscape. A good example of a measurement of success is that 5 educational signs were produced and installed at a project location. So we know what's being done, how many, where, right? Actions. Collaborate with community partners and subject matter experts to offer educational programs and provide text for interpretive signage, right? So in order to produce those signs, this is an interim step, preliminary step to make sure that measure of success is achieved. Here's a quick slide about the application budget. The link to the budget form is in the application. You'll need to download the application or the budget form, fill it in, and then re-upload it prior to hitting submit. You got to use our budget form. For consistency's sake, it is the best way to go. When it comes to the budget, once again, make sure that you've documented your one-to-one match And if you have a partner committed to providing some non-cash match, some donated services and professional stuff, make sure that those letters are attached and that they are reflected in the budget. A couple of don't forgets before we go too far. Make sure that you include some of this really important supporting documentation for your application. Make sure we've got your BCO attached to your application. Make sure that budget's there, and make sure that any letters of commitment that are consistent with the budget are attached to your application. We definitely run into some challenges with this one where we don't quite see the level of documentation that we would like to when reviewing these applications. And making sure that all of this stuff is attended to ahead of time is going to ensure that your application is as competitive as possible. Let's take a look at how we're evaluating these applications. Is the project clearly defined, complete, and concise? That's a 10-pointer. The goals, the measurements of success, and the actions are clear, so we can kind of tangibly follow that thread of what are you going to do, what's it going to produce, and what change is it going to affect? Another 10-pointer. The project advances one or more landscape priorities as listed on the application. And once again, those are the conservation, outdoor activities, tourism, all of those. The project identifies a connection to the landscape from a regional perspective. This is a 5-pointer, and this is really where we encourage folks to think outside of their backyard, so we ensure that the impact from the project or program is as great as possible. Sometimes that could just be, adding a scope, part of the scope that is, sharing the outcome of a project during a meeting or another conference or something along those lines. Just think about how broad you can make your impact with your project. Another 5-pointer is that the application clearly identifies the need for this project or program. I think we touched on that a little bit. That one's a broad, open-ended question, but we do want to see how that need was determined. Another 5 points goes to the budget, and that if it's complete, comprehensive, adequate, all that good stuff, and funding is secured, and the budget matches any supporting documentation, it's another 5 points. Finally, 5 points goes to a project that has outlined the role of partners, partnerships, and really understands the value of leveraging partnerships for the greatest impact possible with their project. One more time, applications are due 5 p.m. Monday, December 30th, 2024. We will announce awards hopefully in mid-February of 2025. Upon receipt of executed contract, projects and programs can begin, and projects should be completed by Monday, September 15th, 2025. Once again, a couple typos there. Apologize. Those dates in February and September should be 2025s. Couple reminders when it comes to the application. If you haven't submitted your in-process application by 5 p.m. on December 30th, your draft application will disappear. It'll float away into the ether. So make sure that you've got that application submitted in its entirety by 5 p.m. As somebody who's working on an application, you can also download a summary of your submission on the submissions page at the top of your page through Submittable. And in your personal submissions list, you can also find the entirety of your application to download. So we're going to look at the application page in Submittable in just a second. Submittable is the platform that we use to manage, track, and review all of these projects. So I'm going to do my best to do a little screen share swap, and let's see how this rolls. So as I mentioned, we use Submittable as the platform to collect and review all the applications for the mini grant programs. So as you, after you've created a profile in Submittable, this will be what your form looks like. It's pretty easy, pretty user-friendly stuff. We've linked a couple of the important documents outlined by DCNR for some of the other finer points of funding eligibility, documentation, and all those things. I'm just going to give you a quick scrolling tour of what this looks like. As I mentioned, we changed some of the fields to just be open-ended answer. Feel free to also just go bullet points with these. If you are more comfortable outlining things in that format, works for me. Okay, so this should be pretty self-explanatory. The budget form is also linked to the budget category. This is where you'll need to download this form, fill it in, and then upload it back using this functionality of the platform here. You can access the submittable through the PEC webpage at www.pecpa.org/apply. That is going to be on the top right-hand side of the website under some of our other fields. And once you head there, you can scroll down to the bottom to see our open grant opportunities. We'll click on the Apply Now button from that point, and that will bring up the list of programs open for application on the submittable page. If you have any questions about the content, feel free to email me, ccorbran@pecpa.org. If you have any questions regarding the budget form, those go to Angie, and Angie's a whiz when it comes to the budget form. Angie's email address is right there, and we'll make sure to put all these in the video description as well, so they're a little bit easier to access. If you have a question specifically about the software, I would say ask me first, and if I can't set you on the right track, then it's going to be best to connect you directly to Submittable. Couple frequently asked questions, things that we've seen enough times to specifically address them on their own slide. For any sort of construction project, and that can be a trail improvement or trail construction project as well, the applicant must be the landowner. This one can be a little bit tricky sometimes. We have, friends groups and other groups who are doing trail projects on other land, but we need to make sure that there's consistency and, a long-term commitment to making sure the project stays open. And the best way to do that is to keep the applicant the same as the landowner. If you have any questions about that, once again, reach out. Generally, these mini grant funds cannot be used for big equipment purchases. In a lot of ways, those purchases and that equipment can be employed in other means outside of the scope of this project, and that doesn't always sit well. So that gets a little bit wishy-washy. Finally, if your project includes an event or an activity, there should generally not be a cost to participate. And I think you'll notice the number of times that I said generally in this slide. There's always an exception for these things. And if you need some more clarification, please reach out. So a great way to learn a little bit more about some of the past projects that have been successful in securing funding through the mini grant program is through our Laurel Highlands Conservation Landscape mini grant story map. We try to keep this as up to date as possible over the last couple rounds of projects, and we host all the success stories kind of categorized by priority on this story map. And I'm going to toggle over to that screen just to give you a quick look at that in just a second. Okay, so here's our story map. This is an easy way to just scroll through and see a little bit more about the projects that have been accepted and awarded in the past. Some great projects over the last couple of years. Click on one and they'll bring you up with the specific location of that project, a quick description of what that is, and then each project has a success story that you can click on and links to the completed success story within Dropbox. It's a great way to learn more about what's happened in the past. So I think generally that's all I have for today, folks. Hopefully this process is not too cumbersome for most of you. I do encourage you, if you don't take anything else away from this short video, is get in touch with me as soon as you have an idea cooking about, how you'd like to approach your application, about how to make sure you're making the most impact you can with your project or program, and just to chat a little bit more about the process. You can feel free to email me at ccorbran@pecpa.org, or just give me a call, shoot me a text. Happy to chat pretty much anytime about anything at all. Thanks, folks, and looking forward to seeing your project application roll through.